All right, so I got this trailer. It's an 18-foot load trail, just open for, you know, my car or whatever. It's not an enclosed one or anything crazy like that. But there's a couple things that I don't really like about it. One, it doesn't have a winch, and, you know, I always find myself pulling up broken cars or whatever else, and it's always been a pain. I usually use a come-along or something, but it takes forever, and I'm just kind of over it. The other thing is, the toolbox on the front of it, it's kind of small, but it also always condensates inside. No matter what I've done, I put some holes in it and everything else to try and get it to breathe a little bit. It just will not do it. So all my ratchet straps and everything are always rusty and they never want to work properly. They're always kind of gummed up and it's just driving me crazy. So we're going to address that. Also, there's not enough D-rings down the trailer itself. So if you're trying to hook something down, I always find myself in between D-rings or whatever, and it's always been a pain, so we're gonna address that. Also, loading at night, trying to load anything as it's starting to get dark has always been an issue. So I'm gonna be adding some auxiliary lighting to it that will hopefully allow us to work out on it, behind it, beside it, whatever, you know, as it's darker or whatever outside, and lighten it all up. Also, the ramps are super, super, super heavy. You can only get them out on the passenger side, which for me is always next to a curb or something like that. And you can never get the one ramp out. It's so low on the dovetail that it, when you try to flip the door open, it always hits a curb or bump or something, and you can't open it, you can't ever get it out. So what I want to do is try and make a longer ramp. They're only about 5 feet. They're super, super heavy. So I want to make something that's a little lighter, and I'm going to try and get out to that 10-foot mark because the 06 back here is so low that I had to make like a 5-foot extension for these ramps, and that's always been a pain trying to carry all that stuff around. So those are some of the things that I want to address, and yeah, let's flip on the lights over here and I'll kind of walk you through what we got and what the plan is. All right, so we started off saying that the toolbox was small. So we're gonna be going, let me jump over here. I'll show you the small little box that was on it. Don't mind the mess or whatever, but anyways, this little box right here just kind of went on the tongue, and as you can see, the sides are angled, and that kind of kept it exactly over the framework of the tongue, which is nice. It's nice and compact, but again, it's always kind of been a pain in the butt. So we're switching to this one. This one here is just a ginormous rectangle, as you can see, and it's also made for the back of a truck, not the front of a trailer. So I think it's gonna give us a ton more storage, and I'm hopeful that it'll give us just enough. Now, let's bounce over here. This is the winch that I got. It's a rough country 10,000 pound. So that should be more than enough because the trailer can only take 6,000. So a 10,000 pound winch, no matter what it is, if it's broken, brakes are seized up or whatever, it should pull it up there, no problem at all. Also, I have these lights here. So these are just something I got off of Amazon. It's another brake light, so it's a big metal housing there, and your brake light goes in it. It has a marker light on the side. So I'm gonna put those on the rear of the fender. The fenders on the trailer are getting pretty rough, so we're gonna be replacing the fenders, and that's gonna be what holds the rear side, as well as one of these lights. So I found these lights, again, on Amazon. They're only 1.25 inches thick, so they're nice and compact. The tubing that I'm gonna be using to mount that front wall on the trailer is 2 inches. So my plan is if I run this light with the bolt over here, I'll be able to pivot it this way out to the driver's side, and I'll just flip it over 180 degrees so I can turn them out this way on the passenger side. So I'm gonna be putting 2 on each side on that wall face backward. So I should be able to have 2 lights that swing out to the driver's side, 2 that swing out to the passenger side, and if you just leave them straight, they'll go, 2 of them will go underneath the car and 2 of them will go up over the hood. So it should be super, super easy to load. All right, now, like I did mention, I want to be adding a wall to the front of the trailer. So as you can see here, I went all the way down to the frame here of the tongue, and then it came all the way up. Now, a lot of these walls or wind deflectors, whatever you want to call it, a lot of them are a little bit higher, and then they kind of angle backward like this over top the bed of the trailer, and they come down with a support leg. Now, my issue with that is I don't want to lose any bed space here. I don't want anything to intrude out into the wood. So my plan is, as you can see here, just run a piece of 2x2 angle, or steel tube I mean, and that's going to come down into this, which is already 2 inches, so I won't be losing anything of the wood floor. Now, because I'm not going to be adding some support backward a foot or two, because I do use this thing for, you know, getting pallets or axles or whatever, what I did do is, as you can see here, the framework here that holds the floor is above the tongue. So I'm going to neck this down, and then the toolbox is going to press up into here and get mounted up here. So a lot of these guys run this support leg back over here to stop this thing from folding like this. Well, in my case, I'm just going to weld it straight down here to the trailer, and then the toolbox is going to pinch the bottom in. So if you want to rip it off, you're going to have to rip off that toolbox, which has the heavy-duty winch mounts underneath it, and then you're going to have to break off all this tubing. So in my opinion, you're going to have to hit it pretty damn hard to get it to fall off. Now, another issue that I have with this trailer is, as you can see here, we have a ton of space. There's about 5 inches between the tire and the top of the fender. Now, the axle only has 2 inches to go before it bottoms out on the frame here. So why do I need 5 inches up top if I only have 2 inches until the axle hits the frame and it cannot go up any higher? So when we replace these fenders, I'm going to be bringing them down about 3 inches, which will give me a lot more door clearance, because I do not want to have these removable. I'd like to keep them on the trailer at all times. Just one less thing to, you know, forget about and fall off or anything like that. Now, I did mention about the D-rings. So a long time ago, I added these 2 back ones here. So I have 2 back here behind the fenders, and then I have 2 way up there at the front. So what I want to do is add 3 more here, one at the, you know, kind of on each axle, I guess you would say, and then one just forward. So we're going to be adding 3 more down both sides, and then I'm going to add one at the center of the rear and the center of the front. And that's so if I need to do something with the winch, I can grab a D-ring or a shackle and go off of those and pull, you know, from the side or whatever, and it'll pull it to the center of the trailer to get it up and on. So that's kind of my thought process on there. I did go on Amazon and I found, I believe they're 8,000 pound rated D-rings. So again, that's more than enough. That's more than I can put on the trailer legally anyways. So we're going to weld those on. We're going to weld on the wall. I do have to cut a hole somewhere in here in the middle for the winch to come through, and then that'll come, you know, up the center of the trailer as we need it. Now, that winch is not wireless. It has like a 10-foot lead or whatever to the little remote, which is not going to work for what I want it to do. I want to be able to walk beside the car with a little key fob in my hand and pull the car up. That way I can steer it, load it, do everything by myself. So I went ahead and bought a key fob wireless remote that you can wire into a winch, and we are going to be doing that. So again, I can just have it, you know, I can do it by myself real easy. Now, the last thing I will say before we get into doing some work here is, let's pretend you have the box here, the toolbox here. So my plan is, I got 2 batteries. Here they are here. Got 2 big semi-truck batteries. That's what's going to be what powers my winch. So I'll have, you know, a ton of capacity if I have to winch something from far away, pull it, whatever it is, and I don't have to worry about the battery dying. So my plan is to put 1 battery on one side, 1 battery on the other side, the winch directly in the middle, and, you know, that'll give me enough that I should be able to power all the lights and everything else and not have to worry about it dying. Now, because I'm going to have a battery in here and it's not always with me, you know, to charge up or to, you know, keep a tender on or whatever, my plan is on the side of the toolbox here, I'm going to put 2 bulkhead connectors, so I'll have a positive and a negative that come through the side of the toolbox. I can easily just walk up and hook this thing up to my battery tender, since this trailer does live inside now since we built the new shop. So I'm going to have the bulkhead connectors on the side of the toolbox. You can just walk up real fast, bang, bang, hook up the battery tender, and it'll always be charged whenever I need it. And then also I'm gonna be putting 2 switches there. So one switch will be to send power to the winch. So the winch will not work until you hit that switch. And then the second switch is gonna be for all of the lighting on here. So I did mention we are gonna be putting 4 lights on the back of this wall faced out. And I'm also gonna be putting one back here where we're gonna mount that new tail light. So we'll have a tail light here, and we're gonna have a tail light at the back of the trailer, but I'm also gonna have one work light pointed straight out like this. So we'll have a ton of light on this thing. It will not be an issue ever loading anything at night or anything of the sort. And yeah, that's kind of how I'm gonna do it. Couple switches on the side, battery tender ports, so it's real easy just to, you know, when I unhook it here, I crank the thing up, I can hook the battery tender in, and I never have to worry if anybody's gonna take it, do whatever they have to do. Now, usually your truck will go ahead and charge that thing while you're driving. So again, if it's 100% charged when it leaves here every time, the truck should top it off if you use 10% capacity or whatever it is, pulling a car up on or off. So anyways, long story short, that's the plan. Let's get to it. All right, so let's bring you in here and show you my awesome diagram. So this is my plan. I want to run a tube all the way around the perimeter of that wall. Now, like I did say, that wall hangs down over to the tongue frame, which is further down. So my 18.625 is my measurement from the deck where I want to weld that tube up to the center of this angle, whatever that angle is. Now, when I had Dynamic cut this sheet out for us, all I did was know that I want to be roughly 18.5, and I want it to come over whatever it was. I don't remember now. Let's say it's 18 again. I don't know. And I just kind of connected the 2 points. So this angle is nothing that I even figured out. It's just kind of whatever it ended up being. Now, I did take my protractor and I put it on here. I got 132.05 as my angle at the bottom to this first piece. And then my next angle is 137. So they are not the exact same, but they're pretty close. So what I did do now is I came over to this side, and half of 132 is 66. So I cut two pieces at 18, this is wrong, 18.625 from the straight here on the bottom to the longest point, and then I wanted it at 66 degrees. So I bought this saw not that long ago, but this is the first time that I've actually used it for something of my own. So it ended up working out all right. As you can see, I turned the vise here on a 66 degree angle, and we were able to go ahead and cut that off. This is what they call a falling bandsaw, as it stands up like this and it falls down to cut. So with both of those cut, I was able to stand one up here on the trailer, and now I measure from where that tube ends to the center of this angle. And I was able to get 14 5/8. So I know I need 14 5/8 to the longest point, and I need this angle now cut at 68.5. So what I did was I just measured down my 14 5/8, made a little mark, turned the vise on the saw, bang, cut that thing off. So this angle over here was already done. I flipped the tube over since we had this angle here, and now I was able to cut this one. So I only now set the saw twice, once for the 66 degree and now once for the 68.5. So this top piece here is going to be 68.5 on both ends. So the last end that was in the saw, I measured between this point and this point by doing this. So I have the piece here mocked up, as you can see. I just vice gripped it on, and I was able to measure from this top point here, the furthest out point, over to the furthest out point there. It worked out to 161 1/8. So I marked my tube again, 161 1/8. Since it was already set at our 68.5, we had one end cut, bang, we cut that one. Now I have all of these done. So what I want to do now is I'm not going to put a tube right in the middle because that's where the winch is going to go, but I do want a tube, you know, kind of out here, and then another one out on this edge here somewhere. So what we're going to do is kind of tack all of these tubes together, and then we'll measure between this piece here and the bottom. We'll cut two of those, so we have 1, 2 here. We'll get those tacked in. Then I can pull that wall sheet metal back off, fully weld this whole entire thing, and we should be able to start drilling holes to mount that sheet to. Now, the way I'm gonna mount that sheet to the trailer, this is galvanized material, and I did that on purpose. So my reason for it was I was hoping if a rock hits it or mud or something from the trailer, or the truck I should say, it won't chip this and it won't rust. This tubing back here is just mild steel, so we will be painting all of this. I'm gonna be repainting the whole trailer, power washing the deck, staining it, and all that kind of stuff, but this front wall will stay this color. So what I plan on doing is drilling through here into the tube, and I bought one of those riv nut tools, so I'll show you how that works. But basically it puts a little insert and it kind of compresses it, pinches it into the tube, and it's just like a nut, so you can just thread a bolt in and out. So my plan is to put some fasteners from MS Supply with that cool MagniCoat. It almost blends perfectly in to the galvanized sheeting that's on there. I did it the other night to the man lift. Let me show you. So there you go. That's your MagniCoat bolt. And then obviously that's the galvanized. So I got another one there. And then there's one down at the end. So it blends in really well. It's not going to stand out like a zinc bolt or something. And again, those things won't rust. So a long story short, let's go ahead. I'll throw this into a time lapse. We'll get this stuff sitting up there and kind of tacked in place, and I'll bring you back when we go to cut our two uprights. Anywho, let's do it. So just like that, we got it tacked up. As you can see here, we ran a tube up, across, all the way across the top, down and back down. I got some clamps, some vice grips to kind of hold it there. I got a couple tacks. So now what we're gonna do is pull all the clamps and everything off, pull the sheet metal off of it, and we can weld this thing 100%. Once that's welded, we'll take the grinder, we'll grind everything down so it's smooth, and then we'll be able to start measuring from here down to the bottom so we can make our uprights. So that's the plan, and yeah, I have really bad luck when I try to time-lapse welding. no matter what I do, every time, some of the spatter gets over here and destroys the lens. So I may do it, but it might be a bit further back than you guys might like. So yeah, I apologize, but let's get her welded. Okay, so I saved you watching the saw and tacking this stuff in, but there you go, there you have it. So I decided that 2 didn't look right in my opinion. I went with 4 uprights, so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. You're probably gonna ask why these center 2 are so close together. That's because that's the actual spacing of the fair lead for the winch. So the winch fair lead will go directly onto those, and then, you know, kind of pass the load into those and through the whole wall down to the trailer frame. So that's why those 2 are in so tight. And then these outside ones, I just split the distance from here out to this upright. So those are in the center, so they look kind of appropriate to my eye. So I think what I'm gonna do is put the 2 lights right down near the bottom on these far outside ones. And that way, let me go back here so you can see here. So that way it shines the light kind of just inside this fender all the way down, right on top of the floor. And then I'm gonna mount the next, or the 2 higher ones, because I'm gonna put 2 higher and 2 lower. I'll mount the 2 higher ones on the 2 center bars, and hopefully that'll kind of direct some of that light this way, you know, down the center of the trailer so we can see. So I think that's what my plan is for the lights. Now this thing is fully welded up, as you can see. So what we're gonna do is grab the grinder, I'll blast through it, kind of clean it all up. We can get that wall mounted to the front of it. And yeah, we're getting damn close. I think what I'm gonna do after that tonight is go ahead and weld some of these D-rings on that I wanna do, since the welder's already out. I'm already kind of covered in grinding stuff. So we'll get that done, and maybe we'll start the winch plate. If not, you know, I don't want to cut the fenders off yet. I do not have the new ones. It was cheaper for me to wait for the stocking order at the truck place that I got them. So I don't want to cut the fenders off, because then I can't use the trailer. Right now I could still go and use it as long as it wasn't raining, so it doesn't rust. So I don't want to cut the fenders off just yet. But yeah, let's get some D-rings welded up and maybe get a toolbox mounted. So next day out here, and I did a little work before I turned the camera on. So what I did do was I got the toolbox back on the front. As you can see, this thing is much, much larger than the old unit. And I went ahead and cut the hole here where the cable is gonna go through for the winch. Now, the bed of the trailer, or the floor, is higher than where this toolbox mount, as we were talking about before. So I could either raise the winch up so that the cable went flat out that hole, or you can do like I did, and I mounted the winch to the front of the box here so that the cable kind of comes up to the roller and then it goes out. So yes, I lose a little bit of storage in there where this cable is going to come up like this, but this box has this little ridge on the front and on the back, and I could put a shelf across. Now that shelf is above the battery terminal, and it's also above the winch controller pack here. So my plan is to put a wood floor across. That way if the battery does kind of move up and down, it doesn't short out. And then what I'm going to do is make a little wall that goes like this and then forward here. So I'll have a deep pocket over here, and then the rest of the floor will be flat. Since that can be underneath, I can reach through here and flick the winch to free spool mode, or like this where it's going to be pulling. So I got that part done. I got the batteries in there how I think I want them. And I went ahead over here and I drilled through a couple 1-inch holes. And what I was able to do was put these bulkhead connectors. So like I said, this trailer always stays inside. So I'm going to be able to really quickly walk up and put a battery tender on these, and that'll go through and charge all the batteries. Now, I did put them up and down here, so I didn't have to worry about the little alligator clamps on the charger grounding out against this wall. And I'm going to go ahead and put 2 switches here. One to turn power on to the winch, and one to turn power on to all the lights that we're adding. So, now that we know kind of where stuff is going to be placed, I went ahead and started to cut some wiring. So we're going to make the wiring now to power the winch. So for a winch, you have the positive here, obviously, that's going to go to my switch, and then the negative goes on the bottom side of this electric motor. So we're going to come out of that over here to the negative, and then we're going to run a long one from this negative all the way over here, over to, that's the positive, but it's going to run all the way over to this guy. So that ties the 2 batteries together, and it ties the winch to the ground there. Now, like I said, the positive is going to go over to our switch, and then out of the switch back here through a fuse, and then over to the positive. We also are going to be adding a positive wire from this battery all the way over here like this, and over here to this. So that'll tie both batteries together at 12 volts, not 24, and we'll be able to pull off both to use the winch in and out. So you guys have seen me do it many times on this channel, but we're gonna go ahead and use our Amazon battery crimper here. So like I said, you guys have seen me lots of times, just like a little guillotine. You pick this thing up and smack it with a hammer. I do have these little ring terminals here, and these are gonna be what we're gonna use to jump on the battery. So that's it. There's nothing to it but to do it. So let's go ahead. I'll spin you around here and we'll get these battery cables made up. There you have it. This is where I'm gonna end this video. It's about 2:30 in the morning. I'm gonna be up, I don't know, 5:36-ish. So it's time to go in and be done with this thing for tonight. But we made a ton of progress. I'll show you what we did. All right, so inside the box, we have 1 battery, the winch, another battery. The batteries now are wired together. The winch is on a 300 amp fuse here. This thing at max draw will draw 340, so that should kick before we burn anything out. And then what I did was I hooked up over here, as you can see, my battery tender on there, and that's charging both batteries right now overnight. There is something that I've been looking at. We may go pick up tomorrow. So that's kind of why we were rushing to get this thing done. Now, I mounted the fair lead on the backside. I just put an axle strap around it so it's real easy to grab and pull out. I still have to paint all this. I still have to mount lights. I got to do all this stuff. The fenders aren't in yet. So, you know, it's coming apart for paint and everything else later on. This is just kind of, let's get it done so we can go and use it. All right, so this is where we're gonna stop it. As I mentioned, I wanna give a shout out to someone special. Nothing to do with a sponsor or anything tonight. I'm gonna shout this video out to my dog, Diesel. He passed away earlier this year, and we sure do miss him around here. My little guys always talk about him and whatnot. So yeah, this one's for you, buddy. I miss you. And glad you made it this far in the video. Hopefully you'll come back for another one, and who knows, maybe we'll be doing lighting on this, maybe we'll be working on the new thing, maybe we'll be on the 06 or one of the million other projects that are in here. So anyways, have yourself a great night, and make sure you get out in your shop and do stuff.